Now, of course, we've all been waiting over the past 18 months for the final report from the January 6th committee. Of course, we all saw what happened at the January 6th insurrection, the attempted overthrow of the United States government by the losing party in the election, something we've never seen in America. Those of us who watched it live could not believe that this was happening in America and not in some other country. But since that period of time, we've seen many on the political right try to turn this into just a protest at the Capitol. Just some people who are walking around doing tours, trying to downplay this. And we've even seen Congress people like Marjorie Taylor Greene insist that in order for Kevin McCarthy to become Speaker of the House, that they provide, quote unquote, justice for the January 6th protesters, as they call them, saying that these people are being mistreated by law enforcement. We've even seen hashtags say her name for Ashley Babbitt, the insurrectionist who was killed at the Capitol trying to break through a door and who was heroically shot down before she could attack Congress people. But because of this, we need to find out why exactly have we not gotten this gotten this information yet? What is it going to take and what are we going to find out? I want to bring our panel in early to talk about this. We're joined by Erica Savage, founder of the Reframed Brain, also Riche Colbert, founder of the Black Women's View, and also Dr. Greg Carr, Department of Afro-American Studies at Howard University, to discuss this. So Dr. Carr, I want to start with you. Why do you think it's taking so long to get this report out from the January 6th committee? And what should we expect to come out when this information is released?
Well, since we know the American public doesn't read, I don't expect that there'll be much of a needle, even with the 160-page preliminary report released, how many people have actually read it. There's the titillating stuff. I mean, something breaking today about Cassidy Hutchinson, the White House aide, who was attempted to be strong-armed by a lawyer for Trump, and so forth and so on. That'll be titillating. But I guess, the reason that it's taken so long is because, you've got to have some type of substantive momentum to get to the real issue, which is whether or not somebody's going to be prosecuted. So all eyes, as we've been saying now for the last couple of weeks, are going to turn to Jack Smith, the special counsel, who's been appointed to oversee investigations by the Department of Justice. We'll see who gets charged. We see that, finally, everything kind of focused around Trump. This preliminary report seems to indicate we didn't see Jenny Thomas brought up, for example. I don't know whether or not her, friend Liz Cheney may weighed in on that end, but it looks like it's focusing on Trump. So it could just be politics. Stop the guy from running in 24 if you can.
Well, Erica, on that point, the January 6th committee was convened in order to find out exactly what happened. What were the security breakdowns that led to this taking place? We all saw video of Capitol police officers opening gates to allow the protesters in. We all saw that this was organized. We need to find out, well, who paid for all these people to come to the Capitol? We know hotels in the D.C. area are not exactly cheap, and to have these people come in from the rural areas of the country being bussed in, flown in. We thought the committee was going to get to the bottom of all that, but it seems to just be a question of getting Trump. Will the American people have any faith in the outcomes of this study, of this investigation, if it's only an indictment on Trump and not an explanation of the systemic failures that led to it?
Yeah, good to see you again, Robert. Glad to
you too.
Be in your company once again. But I will say around this, I think that, to Dr. Carr's point, unless it's really kind of like tightly into a certain number of characters, it really doesn't capture the public. One of the things that I was really intrigued by, of course, as all of us have been following this, is really the way that the right will definitely take hold of hashtags, words that we've used to really speak our pain and to make people get eyeballs on campaigns that are specific to Black people. And so when I heard that Say Your Name, like that was trending, I just received something from the African American Policy Institute specifically around celebrating the anniversary of Say Your Name. And then all of those mothers and family members alike who have been, forever hurt because they've lost their child, their daughter specifically, due to gun violence on that of police. So just wanted to kind of get that in to say that I think that the public already has an idea of what happened on January 6th. We saw it before our own eyes. It was really good to see this summer that there were people that were interested in getting more details and actually engaging us a lot further into understanding what led up to that, and then some of the things that happened after the attack, and the people that were affected, right there in Georgia. Miss Ruby Johnson and her daughter, Shay Moss, her name is a name that Miss Johnson talked about. She is afraid to say her name in public because of all of the backlash that happened with the 2020 election deniers, and their people being effectively targeted by the Trump administration. So all of that to really say, if Trump is one of the only names that we hear right now, we know that this is something that has been happening for quite some time. He was the leader specifically of that. There were definitely people that were there to help. So I would just say, this is it'll be now a year coming up to 22 years now coming up to 2023, for people to just understand the state that we're in, that we are definitely holding on to as much democracy as we possibly can. And I think the final report, we've already felt what it's like to have people that continually are hostile towards community, towards people having freedom. So I think what the report will do is just memorialize what we already know, and really, I hope, help motivate people to get more involved and engaged on voting, especially with the visit that I know we'll talk about here shortly from President Zelenskyy of Ukraine. They're fighting for their own land in the middle of a war right now.
And Reese, I wanted to kind of look at the other actors that we know were involved in January 6th that we really have heard no testimony about. Josh Hawley, the senator from Missouri, who spoke at the rally and was revving up the crowd, fist bumping them. We haven't heard any investigation into exactly what his connection was and whether or not he will be charged for inciting the insurrection, as Trump has been. Marjorie Taylor Greene, where we have video of her giving tours around the Capitol, the insurrectionists, while the Capitol was closed, but we haven't heard charges being brought against her for her role in the insurrection. We haven't found out just how deep this MAGA movement goes inside of the Capitol Police, inside of the National Guard, whether or not these people are effectively running a Vichy government. Do you think it's a mistake to simply focus on President Trump and not really dive into what's going on with the rest of these figures who are still going to be part of American politics?
Well, I don't think that they simply focused on Trump. I think that the January 6th committee had a number of charges in order to clear up. Number one, the biggest charge was to refute the notion that the election was stolen. That was a huge thing that when they were convened back in June of 2021, there was still a lot of election deniers, and particularly coming from the Republican side, about the legitimacy of the Biden-Harris administration. And so we see that they unequivocally moved the needle on that, because every single election denier went down in flames this past midterms. And I don't think that would have happened so forcefully and so thoroughly without the work of the January 6th committee. But I think that it was also important for the January 6th committee to establish that Trump, knowing that the election was legitimate and that he lost, still went on with a propaganda campaign, a disinformation campaign, to try to hold on to power. And he had many allies in that fight. I don't think that the charge of the committee is to prosecute people. They have recommended Trump for charges, but they don't have to prosecute every single player in this scheme to try to steal the administration, not the White House, but to try to steal a second term for Trump. So I think that they have accomplished their goal. Obviously, there are some people that are going to be dug in their opinions about whether or not this was stolen, but I think they've done some really important work, and I don't think that they left much on the table.
And well, just kind of as a response to that, I think that we're in a dangerous position when you have someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene from my state of Georgia, who is very clearly making it known that in order for Kevin McCarthy to be Speaker of the House, she said Kevin McCarthy is going to have to give her a significant amount of power. She's going to be probably the chairman of a committee. She'll be able to convene hearings, drag people before Congress. She'll have subpoena power, etc. Do you think it's a mistake allowing these people to still be part of our government, knowing what they did on January 6th and not prosecuting them?
Hell yeah, it was a mistake. But guess what? She got reelected. So we still have what we call a democracy. And at the end of the day, she got reelected in red Georgia up against a very capable and credentialed opponent, Marcus Flowers. So, that's what the people chose. And at the end of the day, the Republicans are going to be a shit show circus with or without Marjorie Taylor Greene. They have a basket of deplorables in the House that are unserious about legislating. They already telegraphed that they're going to shut down the government. They're going to have these circus of hearings hearings. And so she's just one more clown in the Republican circus. And I think that she gets a lot more credit than what she deserves. Because if she wasn't in the backwoods of Georgia, nobody would even see her in Congress. And there are other scandalous people out there too. So I think Marjorie Taylor Greene, she can huff and puff and blow your house down. But at the end of the day, the Republicans really aren't going to get much done with the Democratic Senate and a Democratic president.
And Erica, on that point, we're seeing a schism taking place even in the MAGA movement in the Republican Party, where you have Marjorie Taylor Greene, who supported McCarthy, then you have Lauren Boebert, and them two are going back and forth in a trailer park battle that you usually see on the Jerry Springer show. You've got McConnell in the Senate supporting the $1.7 trillion budget. Then you have the more far right-wing people like Rand Paul being against that. What are our chances of actually being able to govern while we still have all these insurrectionists in the Congress, when you see the Republican Party starting to cannibalize itself from the inside out?
Yeah, all those things are very true. But this takes me back to 2010, I think it was. And that was the advent of the Tea Party. We have seen this sorry ass power grabbing, I love my skin color bullshit before. And I think that this really underscores, to Reese's point, of everything she says, the demand that it places on the vote. Because when you look inside of Congress, when you look inside to see, those 435 members that have to go up for election every 2 years, so they're pretty much actively campaigning. She has campaigned about who she is. Not much is going to change. The response is then, what do we do about that? Because all of the things that you name, Congress has the power of the purse. So you mean to tell me in the culture of get your bag, you're going to let somebody steal your bag? All of that to say, this is why we spend so much time on this platform really talking about the importance of being involved in your local, state, and your federal elections. But most importantly, get involved in what's happening in your neighborhood. When you have people like Reese brought up, you had a great candidate, Marcus Flowers. Marcus Flowers had, he laid out who he was, who he wasn't, what effectively he wanted to do for the state. Things that he saw with Marjorie Greene Taylor, he said, time's up for that. But people didn't show up in a way that actually echoed to say that we're actually on the side of democracy. So, to the point that we're all raising, this again is why it is important to know what is happening in your community, so that when we get people like this that do decide that they want to go and run around Washington, D.C., that they claim to hate so much, but they love being here so much at the same time, that is our toolkit to say, well, no, they have people that are funding their wildness because it works for them. What are we doing in response to that besides getting on social media and complaining about it, having hot takes about it? We have to be actively involved and engaged in ensuring that people like this don't continue to run amok in a place that we effectively pay their salaries.
I think my fear is that if this committee is just about Trump and people see it as a question of getting Trump, if you put Trump in jail, he becomes that martyr type figure. And if we don't go into who paid for all these people to be here, who organized it, who got the permits, who was working with the Capitol Police, what members of Congress were involved, that this will become the new normal. That this will become how every election is settled. There was a point in time where we were used to candidates conceding after races. That's a thing of the past now. There was a point in time where people would come together for that first 100 days or that first 100 years of administration and try to push through an American agenda. That doesn't happen anymore. There was a point in time where they would say, well, the president gets their Supreme Court justices. They get their cabinet picks. That doesn't happen anymore. I'm afraid this becomes the new normal if we don't root this out. And that's one of the dangers of the January 6th committee. If it's simply a question of Trump. Trump is a figurehead of this movement. These people existed before Trump. They'll exist after Trump. So we have to ensure that we are detailing this, because even a candidate like Herschel Walker lost by 1.5 points. Dr. Oz lost by 2 points. Carrie Lake lost by 1.5 points in Arizona. So it's not that this is a landslide against them. There's still a big portion of the country that agrees with this way of thinking.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment. When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot
tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.